What is reality? This question has been pondered by philosophers, physicists, theorists, and universal law enthusiasts for quite some time. There are a lot of mysteries regarding reality that we simply don't have the answers to. And it's likely that our minds only access a small fraction of what physical existence actually is. One of the theories surrounding reality is known as simulation theory. This is a modern system of ideas with ancient roots. This theory, famously detailed in the 1999 film The Matrix, states that we're actually living in an advanced digital construct, such as a computer simulation, that's overseen by a higher form of intelligence. Human curiosity alone tells us that if we were advanced enough at this stage of our evolution to create a simulation to observe, there are many people who would find this type of observation interesting on a multitude of levels. From a logical standpoint, reality is anything we can perceive using one or more of our five senses. However, as Rizwan Virk, a tech entrepreneur, MIT scientist, and author of the simulation hypothesis states, simply because we perceive the world as real and material doesn't mean that it is so. In fact, the findings of quantum physics may shed some doubt on the fact that the material universe is real. The more that scientists look for the material in the material world, the more they find that it doesn't exist. Here are a couple of examples of this. In the well-known double-slit experiment, electrons are fired at a photosensitive screen through slits in a copper plate. This will generally produce an interference pattern that indicates wave-like behavior. But when the same experiment is conducted under observation, electrons behave like particles instead of waves, and there's no interference pattern. As far as simulation theory goes, some have taken this to mean that if we are in fact in a simulation, this happens because that simulation is conserving its resources and rendering certain things only when it knows we're looking at them. Here's another example that's worth pondering. In 2017, a group of researchers from the University of Washington proved that they could embed malicious computer code into physical strands of DNA. Their goal with this experiment was to show that computers working in gene sequencing were vulnerable to attack. However, they may have also inadvertently revealed that what we perceive to be biological reality has in fact been computer code all along. In a paper written in 2003 by Oxford philosopher Nick Bostrom entitled, "Are You Living in a Computer Simulation?" he states that at least one of three possibilities is true. Number one, all human-like civilizations in the universe go extinct before they develop the technology capable of creating simulated realities. Number two, if any civilizations do reach this phase of technological maturity, none of them will bother to run simulations of their evolutionary history. Or number three, advanced civilizations would have the ability to create simulations. If just one civilization were to reach the simulation point, probability says we are likely simulated beings, and we are almost certainly living in a computer simulation. Elon Musk also argued for our probability of being in a simulation in 2016 when he stated, 40 years ago we had Pong, 2 rectangles and a dot. That's what games were. Now, 40 years later, we have photorealistic 3D simulations with millions of people playing simultaneously, and it's getting better every year. And soon we'll have virtual reality, augmented reality. If you assume any rate of improvement at all, the games will become indistinguishable from reality. He brought attention to the simulation hypothesis when he claimed that the chances of living in base reality were 1 in billions. And Virk believes it to be somewhere between 50 and 100% that the simulation hypothesis is accurate, stating, "I think it's more likely that we're in a simulation than not." The logic behind this hypothesis is that we're already really good at making simulations, and we're getting better at it all the time. In fact, in 2014, the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics connected 8,000 computers in order to create a 350 million light-year simulation of our universe that they digitally aged over 13 billion years. We also currently use computer simulations to predict things such as hurricane paths, earthquakes, the interactions of planets, and to aid scientific studies. Because these simulations have some inherent value, we have more incentive to create them. So what would this mean regarding our ability to create our reality intentionally and have control over our destiny? What we perceive as reality is already partly a simulation created by our brains. We use our past experiences to process the data we receive. Theoretical physicist David Bohm states it like this: reality is what we take to be true. What we take to be true is what we believe. What we believe is based upon our perceptions. What we perceive depends on what we look for. What we look for depends on what we think. What we think depends on what we perceive. What we perceive determines what we believe. What we believe determines what we take to be true. What we take to be true is our reality. And from a law of attraction standpoint, we already know that what we believe is our truth is what we experience as reality. This is how the brain filters information to fit within the parameters of what it has stored away and given meaning to. When we consciously work with our own minds, using affirmations or other subconscious altering modalities, could it be that we are actually altering our own program? And if we were, in fact, in a simulation, wouldn't it be useful to know what the rules of the game are so we could use them to our advantage to create the life we choose? Burke stated in an interview with Digital Trends, "It's very possible that whoever created our simulation would like to see, given random choices, where we as a civilization would end up. Would we destroy ourselves? Would we end up creating nuclear weapons? Would we end up creating our own simulation?" He goes on to say, "We would want to know what the goals of the game are and what our individual quests might be. We all want to know what our individual quests are and what our achievements are. We might have certain goals or experiences that we're here to try to fulfill. Is it possible that we're just dreaming, or that we're in a simulation, or that reality isn't reality at all? At this stage, we have no way of knowing what the true reality of existence really is. Simulation theory may sound like a far-fetched idea, but this hypothesis is often discussed in academia by theoretical physicists, technology entrepreneurs, philosophers, astrophysicists, and other scientists. Even Harvard University physicist Lisa Randall, who doubts this theory, allows for the possibility that nothing is what it seems, including the cognitive process of observation and how we experience reality. So is it better to free your mind, or better to live in blissful ignorance? Whether you choose the red pill, a metaphor representing a prefabricated world and the knowledge of what the truth really is, or the blue pill, which represents moving through life as you were without having concern with that, one thing is certain: we all have a very real conscious experience of our individual and collective lives. Reality may not always seem simple, but we have been given free will to make choices that impact our experience in very real ways. In the movie The Matrix, knowledge means power, and ignorance means slavery, but it might not be that black and white. Just because we are awake to one thing and gain power over our lives in that area, doesn't mean we don't need to continue to search for the truth in other areas of our lives so we learn to master the totality of our existence. It is a constant evolutionary process, and we can still hack our reality at many different levels. As Nick Bostrom states, if we are living in a simulation, then the cosmos that we are observing is just a tiny piece of the totality of physical existence. While the world we see is in some sense real, it is not located at the fundamental level of reality.